this is Dr. Bill Stork with another installment in stories for the cooped up, captivated, and otherwise bored out of their mind. Well, no one has not been affected by the coronavirus. And yesterday, we lost John Prine, one of the greatest songwriters of our time, maybe of any time. Prine's claim to fame was that he loved to write stories through other people's eyes. Well, I too am all about perspective. I find an attempt to understand what other people see and how they see it is one of the greatest ways to see the world a little bit more completely. So today I'm going to tell stories about a farmer. Well, so many of you may have heard that farmers are being asked to dump their milk. To put that into perspective, I was on Kevin Griswold's farm on Monday. They milk about 1,000 cows. In doing so, they produce about 15,000 gallons of milk a day. This week, his milk plant will accept 30,000 gallons of milk. That means there will be over 100,000 gallons of milk poured into his manure pit. Now, at the root of every farmer, what drives them to get up every morning and work 7 days a week without so much as a sick day is purpose. There is nobility, and farmers absolutely are driven by the fact that they feed the country. It's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt badly. So here goes my story about Give 'em Hell Harry Schnully. In 25 years of practicing veterinary medicine, I have been fired a couple of times, once before I ever set foot on the farm. Harry Schnully called at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. He had 3 cows with sore feet. Now, I am obligated by oath to preserve animal health and to prevent suffering, but sore feet are very seldom life-threatening, and I had to pick up my kids from daycare by 6 o'clock. I explained that I could be there by 4 o'clock Saturday morning if he needed, but I just couldn't be there that night. Well, the walls of our exam room are thinner than a Motel 6, and I could hear him barking at my receptionist. Tell him to kiss my butt. If he was the last vet in Wisconsin, I would sell my cows, move to Michigan, and milk goats. And so it goes. It took him 3.5 years, but eventually Harry chewed up and spit out every other country veterinarian in the countryside. And 3.5 years later, I found myself back in the crosshairs. Well, the Schnully farm must do sore feet on Fridays, like fish fry and happy hour, because once again, Friday afternoon, 3 sore feet. Except this time, I didn't have my kids. So I found the farm, swung wide, and backed into his driveway. Unbuckled my seatbelt and went to grab the door handle to find that it was gone. Like a firefighter at a rollover accident, he practically ripped the door off of my pickup truck, and there he stood. Flat top haircut on his bottle head, barrel-chested forearms like Popeye, spewing tobacco spit like a manure spreader. Do you know what the problem is? There ain't no goddamn cow vets no more. Do you call yourself a cow vet? I said, actually, sir, I am a trained classical pianist. I'm in search of a recital. Get your shit and get in my barn before the cows die of old age. Well, I slid out of my pickup truck, dropped down a couple of gears, grabbed my toolbox and my bucket, threw my rope over my shoulder, and kind of sauntered into the barn. I sat up behind a cow named Francine. She ain't even on the list there, Beethoven. I said, well, she ought to be. She's got an abscess in her right rear foot. By the time I had her tied up and had pus hissing out of the crack in the bottom of that poor cow's soul, I had found out that he had served in Vietnam as a Marine, no kidding, and Earl D. Woods was a raging pain in the butt. Over the next 3 or 4 cows came the interrogation. Where did I go to school? Was I married? Did I have kids? How long had I been in practice? And where did I live? Well, in the course of just that one visit, and absolutely the next to follow, Harry Schnully, Give 'em Hell Harry Schnully, very quickly decrescendoed into Fuzz, as his neighbors called him, and he was one of my favorite farm calls, to the extent that every visit would end at his tailgate. We'd be talking about hanging drywall, fishing, plumbing, electrical work, and a claim. Yep, here pretty quick my son's going to take the herd over. Well, so long did this claim go on, I kind of thought that it was like that free beer tomorrow sign outside of your favorite Irish pub, and maybe Harry's pain meds were going to his head a little bit. But alas, some number of years later, Chris was oh so real. We were about halfway through a herd check, palpating pregnancy checking cows, and there came a thump on the milk house door. The spring twanged an A flat, and the next thing you know, there were footprints, footsteps, light as a fawn, skipping eighth notes in the chaff in the manger. He rounded the corner and extended his hand to make an introduction, and he said, "Hello, my name is Chris." Well, yes, he was. A tobacco-spitting mini-me. No, he was not. This Schnully was sporting a faded Oshkosh do-rag tied tightly to his head, a summer-weight flannel that matched, unbuttoned, sleeves cut out, and tied playfully well above his waist. Boring black rubber overshoes, pshaw. He was sporting a vintage pair of mismatched Chuck tees, mid-20s and farm fit. He was rocking a shamefully tight pair of Daisy Dukes. Well, much like his father, Chris quickly became one of my favorite farm stops. Now, when I wrote this story, one of the first people I showed it to, or the first person I showed it to, was Chris. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't offensive in any way. He slid it back at me and assured me that it most certainly was offensive. He said, "I worked for a solid 45 minutes on that outfit, and it took you 10 years to even acknowledge?" So sadly, this story is a eulogy. We lost Harry about a year and a half ago. He fought heart disease and cancer in 3 different forms to his last breath. Well, I have many, hundreds of memories of Harry Schnully. The most vivid memory I have, though, is the words that he used to describe his son Chris, and all those years before I actually got to meet him. He said, "Yep, my son Chris. He is one hell of a dairyman and a damn hard worker." Thank you very much. In the next installment, we're going to pay our gratitude for a group of health workers that may not be mentioned by name during this little fiasco that we're going through right now. Whatever you do, keep something moving forward.